This is a quick video about the certain categories in your investment proposal brainstorming. We're going to focus this video on everything that is in yellow. Now you'll notice at the top, it says that all yellow sections must be supported with evidence from the research to support the need for this idea section of your research documentation sheet. This is your research documentation sheet, and at this point you should already have your topic identified. You should have a research question that's not only been identified but approved by your teacher. You just finished creating your thesis statement, and so there should be a thesis statement here that you have also submitted as an assessment for your teachers, and hopefully you've gotten some feedback on that. If not, as long as it's been submitted, you should be okay. And then you should also have, at minimum, 2 completed resources where you have the link, the actual works cited reference, a 2 to 3, maybe 4-sentence summary of your resource. You've taken notes somewhere about the resource, and you've come up with some direct quotes and paraphrases from that resource that you would want to use. Again, for all of these, you should already have an in-text citation in this sheet, and again, you should have 2 of them. So now when you're looking here, the very first thing is in your mission and vision section, and you need to put your topic or your need. Well, you already have that, just like you should already have your thesis statement, and both come from right here. We're just putting those things in more than one place because those things are governing everything that you do in this project, in this paper, in this presentation. The last thing that you need to do in this section is write your mission or your vision. This is your big picture. This is your dream. What is it that you are going to attempt to change? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to help people? You need to make sure that you are clearly citing evidence in this section, because this is where you start to prove why this is actually a need. So because of the number of people who have this need, quote my evidence, then I want to invent something that is going to make their lives easier, or the product that I'm going to invent or the service that I'm going to provide is going to help make their lives easier, or is going to provide access to this thing that I've identified, whatever it happens to be. Your mission and vision, your goal is to have several sentences here that just like really gets in and explains it. It does not have to be perfectly polished and everything like that, but you want to really try and get a lot of your ideas and some of the evidence that would belong there written down. In the second section, it's all about your audience. And so what you want to try and figure out is who your target audience is. And guys, I can't tell you enough, your audience can't be everyone. It's too big, and there's no way that we can come up with a marketing campaign that's just for everyone. You need to figure out what it's going to do for different people. It is possible to have your idea reach across certain ages or demographics or income, things like that, but you still need to try and be as specific as you can be. Are you focusing on working adults with families? Are you focusing on children from underprivileged countries? Are you focusing on adults and children who are below the poverty line? Are you focused on how a certain target audience compares to somebody else who is actually doing these things well or is providing these things? So you want to be really specific. Again, your goal here is several sentences and research. Your research in this section might look like statistics about who this actually impacts. It can be based on the struggles that you've identified and how that relates to this target audience. The second section is, what does this target audience value? And so what you're looking for are values. And these can be things like, do they value education? Do they value money? Do they value time with their families? Do they value anything that can be something that they put like pride in, that they think is essential? These are also things that are often intangible. That means we can't touch them. So a value is something like truth, and that would work well, or wealth. And you can't necessarily touch that, and the way that we define that looks different for everybody. Again, you need to prove that your target audience is going to value what it is that you are bringing to them and what it's going to do for their lives, because that's the only way you're going to be able to prove that they would pay to have their problem solved. So consider that when you are writing that. Again, you're looking for several sentences, lots of in-text citations, things along those lines. For some of these sections, for right now, if you feel like you want to go with bullet pointed lists and you want to focus more on organizing some of that later, that's fine. But you do need to make sure that you've got really well thought out ideas. The last section for this one is just what is the message that you want to convey? And so, what is that story that describes your idea or solution? So, again, based on evidence, but your goal here is to communicate what inspired you to choose to address this problem. What real or fictional stories could you share that would inspire your audience to do something? This does dip just a tiny bit into what we're going to do with narratives. But when you're thinking about this, essentially what you're trying to think about is what could I tell based on experiences that I've read and researched that from people who, really struggle with this issue or this problem, or what could I imagine that people really struggle with? And so as you're describing this and you're writing, again, in bullet points are fine, sentences are fine, but you want to make sure that, again, you still have evidence that's in-text cited. But what is it that's going to inspire an emotional response, potentially from your audience? And so you really want to put that piece there. And then the final section is what words and images can best tell that story. This is not asking you to put pictures here. What you want are descriptive details that will paint a picture for your audience. So for instance, if in my story that describes my idea or solution, I talk about an older person who's living in a community and they want to be a part of it, but there's no way for them to have access to, a car or to something else. And so words and images that can best tell that story, I might describe that older individual as despondent or terribly lonely or something along those lines, as opposed to how they will feel once they have my idea or my solution or my product, which would be that they will feel, connected and loved and worthwhile and whatever. You're trying to paint a picture of what people are going to feel like, what they're going to think, what they're going to see. You could describe how they're going to feel when they see your product or experience your service for the first time. So you really want to be specific there in terms of your language. That's it for this section. When you are finished, you're ready to go back to your research document and research about your product or idea.